Every girl between the ages of 18 and 32 knows me. No, not my name, but who I am. I'm the guy whose calls you don't answer, but who you call on a cold winter night when your car battery is dead at the shopping center and you need to recharge. I'm the guy you call to fix a leaky toilet on a Saturday afternoon before a party I wasn't invited to. I'm the guy you take to weddings and Christmas parties because I'm polite. I make a good impression. And your mums and aunts like me. I'm the guy you say, call me on Saturday. We'll see. After you've asked me out because you're hoping something better will come along. I'm a good backup plan, as I will always pay and treat you well, but I won't pressure you. I am a friend who is not bad enough to lose your number, but not good enough to make an effort for a friend. I am invisible. Well, until you need me. I was that guy all through high school. An honor student, a stable middle-class person, brought up to be polite and kind to others. I was never a member of sports teams, always worked after school because my parents earned too much for government programs but were too poor to own anything but Kmart jeans and budget eyeglass frames. I was the nice guy who opened doors for you and your girlfriends and let you get ahead of me in the lunch queue, the ones you didn't even recognize. You know what they say about where nice guys end up? Popular rumor says, last. But that's not true. We good guys don't always finish last, we just never get noticed, and no one knows if we finished last or if we finished at all. Too rich for financial aid, but not smart or athletic enough for a scholarship, I attended community college while I worked. At work, I steadily moved up the ladder, getting enough responsibilities to get the job done, but not deservedly so, as promotions went to the more perky visible guys. Like most of my invisible peers, I moved out at 18, bought a turnkey house, and spent most of my time studying mangled floors, moldings, tiles, and the like. Was my life lonely? I don't know, because it always has been. I got a dog from a local rescue center, an elderly Doberman with one ear that wouldn't stand up. A few months later, a local mutt from the street joined us. Everyone knows that no matter how little money and possessions you have, having a dog makes you rich. When a stray cat moved into my house, I thought I was definitely rich now. But suddenly something very strange happened. After my 32nd birthday, girls started returning my calls. I started getting not only dates but sleepovers. My social calendar was growing by the day and I had to write down and decline invitations. Was I happy? Does the Pope shit in the woods? Is the bear a Catholic? Yes, that's right. I was happy but confused. Next chapter. The reason for my newfound scholarliness was given to me by Joanna, a retired school teacher who worked in the shop where I bought my coffee every morning. Joanna was a large, gruff smoking lady who didn't give a damn about anyone's capabilities. Joanna could get any of the customers, from construction workers to truck drivers, to talk, and she had a loyal following in the shop. She worked mostly to keep herself busy after the death of her longtime partner. Eric, my boy, you've been known to stop the clock, Joanna told me. I was puzzled. I've heard that you can be so ugly that your face will stop the clock. Is that what you mean? Joanna exhaled a stream of smoke before continuing. No, I'm talking about the biological clock of young ladies. Joanna took a second to puff on her cigarette and then continued. Most women know that after the age of 35, the biological window for having children becomes really dangerous. I interrupted. Joanna, that's not really true anymore. She waved her hand to let the smoke out and deflect my objections. Yes, 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 Eric, true. The odds are better today than in my day, but after 35, the odds still don't stack up in your favor. And so these girls wake up one morning and they are no longer 22 years old, but 32. Carrying a baby lasts a year, so if they want one child, they need to be pregnant by age 34. Add to that courtship, finances, and most importantly, finding the right guy, and there's no more time. And bam, you, my friend Eric, are becoming the stallion who stopped time. I shook my head. There are plenty of single guys out there much better than me as donor husbands. Joanna laughed, letting out another trickle of smoke. Sure, lots and lots of loser donors, but there aren't that many good husbands. Ladies don't want a mama's boy who lives in his parents' basement or a man who will play video games but won't change nappies. These ladies quickly assess the available talent and find that most of the good candidates are already married. Joanna paused. Eric, you see, it is believed that we now know the best age for marriage. If you tie the knot between the ages of 28 and 32, there's little risk of divorce, Not too young and not too old. Goldilocks theory on marriage. The smarter girls got all the bad guys and losers out of their system and locked up all the good men like you early. Now they have a house, a car, 2.5 kids, and a career. I laughed. So basically what you're saying is that at this point, after we've eliminated married men, I get the least of what's left. Joanna grinned. When you're young, most of your life runs linearly. You graduate from high school, then college, then get a job. But real-life relationships don't develop as smoothly. So how do you plan for marriage and a life partner? Because it's not as simple as contributing to a 401k or buying health insurance. Joanna shook off the ashes. Smart women know. If you want a relationship, do what you need to do. Dump the losers and look for good stable guys. Ditch the nightclubs, get off the couch, and go to your cousin's friend's birthday party because that's where you'll find real men, not boys. I shook my head. You can't plot out the path of your life in advance like it's a map waiting for you to fill in the dots, especially when those events depend on other people. Sure, you might decide to move somewhere by a certain age or save up a certain amount of money to buy a house or car months or years in advance, but that's it. Joanna rolled her eyes. You can decide in advance exactly when you're going to get married, have a child, or make a certain amount of money. Of course, there are other people or factors, potential partners, fertility fluctuations, employers, and the economy in general. I have no new research to back up what I say, but in my experience, not as a sociologist or economist, the old adage still holds true. Chance favors the prepared person, or as it's also called, the woman. She put the lighter away. Eric, you're on a deadline right now. I bet you get asked on first dates about your 5-year plan or how big a family you want. I stared at Joanna. How do you know? Joanna giggled. When her friends have babies or freeze their eggs, they're overcome with insecurity. They like their lives, but they dreamed of more. A family that dreamed of a future that always seemed to be in doubt. I remember Lisa Bonos of the Washington Post wrote extensively on this subject. I emptied the last glass of coffee. So I'm in the driver's seat? Joanna nodded. Pretty much, yes, but don't drive off a cliff. Don't sleep with someone crazier than yourself. Look for a life partner, not just a bed partner. Find a stable girl who will support you. Be the mother of your children. Remember, beauty fades, but a good woman will always remain a good woman. As I walked to the car, I realized that Joanna had given me a lot of food for thought. I had really taken her words to heart and had weeded out all but the most stable women who could be a good match for my life. When I finally found the perfect woman, it was a woman that even my mother would like. A girl who, of course, it's all a load of rubbish. Kelly's story. I stared at the chipped fingernail and whined quietly as Mum handed me an aspirin to take away my headache. Mum sighed and slid a cup of coffee towards me. Kelly, what's all this drama about? We were in her small flat. Mum and Dad had split up after I left for college. The situation had been tense a few years before that, but in my last few years of high school, I just brushed it off. Mum bought a condo with her share from the sale of our house. My dad wouldn't tell me why they split up, and my mum simply stated that it wasn't my dad's fault. I didn't bother to ask, but I knew Mum missed the big yard and garden, even though the small flat had a big pool. I took a sip of coffee before answering. That arsehole Richard cheated on me. I caught him in bed with the man I thought was my best friend. Mum looked puzzled. He cheated on you again? I waved my hand at her. No, it was Kevin who cheated on me before. This is a new guy I've been seeing for about a year now. Wow, my mum said, leaning back in her chair. That's the 4th guy who's cheated on you. I shook my head. I think they all end up cheating on me except Tony. Mum made a grimace. Tony wasn't married and didn't have kids? I sipped some more coffee. Yeah, but I didn't know that at the time. At least he wasn't cheating on me with my best friend. Only with his wife, Mum reminded me. Why are all men such jerks? I asked. Relationships are so hard. It's like a full-time job and we have to treat it like one. If your boyfriend wants to leave you, he should give you 2 weeks' notice. There should be severance pay, and before they leave. Mum took a sip before answering. If you're giving your all and it's not enough, you're probably giving it to the wrong person. Mum, what are you talking about? Kelly, think for a second. What do all these cheating men you're dating have in common? They're all cheaters. Mum made a grimace. What else do they have in common? I just looked at her before she continued. Kelly, you seem to be picking boys who will be losers. Rolling my eyes, I replied, if I try to fail and succeed, what am I going to do? She took one of my hands. Kelly, you are a mature adult woman who is over 30 years old. You have a good job. You possess both intelligence and beauty. Maybe it's time to stop playing with those bad boys who still live in their parents' basements and start hanging out with real men. I jerked my hand away irritably. What's wrong with the guys I'm dating? Mum just stared at me. Okay, besides cheating? Mum rolled her eyes. What happened last winter when your car battery died at the mall and you called your boyfriend? He said he couldn't make it because he was playing Call of Duty with his friends. Making a grimace, Mum asked, and who did you call? Dad, replied I, then quickly added, but Dad was on a business trip, so he called Eric. Mum leaned back. So Eric came in the middle of the night in the freezing cold to start your car. Meanwhile, your boyfriend was warm and dry playing video games, and his girlfriend was freezing in an empty car park late at night. I nodded. Didn't Eric bring you a thermos of hot chocolate? Well, it was cold. I was waiting. I defended myself. Besides, I told Eric thanks. He said it was no big deal. Mum nodded. And when your toilet broke before the party and water was running all over the floor, who did you call? It was a Saturday, and the plumbers wanted a fortune, so yeah, I called Eric. Because your boyfriend was… Mum asked. Okay, my boyfriend was too drunk the night before and wouldn't answer his phone. Well, Mum thought, at least Eric had a good time at the party. Wait, you didn't invite Eric to the party, did you? The man who saved the day, you sent him home, didn't you? We had too many guests as it was. Besides, I'm sure Eric already has other plans, I replied, stammering. Even to me, that answer sounded lame. Of course, Kelly, Mum said patronizingly. It's not that I haven't done anything nice for Eric. I brought him to Cousin Tina's wedding. Yeah, Mum objected. At the last minute after you broke up with Tom, or John, or Kevin, who dumped you for that waitress. Eric was having fun, I replied meekly. He said he didn't have anything going on anyway. Mum nodded. Yeah, on his day off with no warning, I'm sure Eric was happy to drive 2 hours to sit and listen to your grandma and Aunt Edith babble in his ear and dance to a really bad DJ with a bunch of people he didn't know. Okay, Mum, I get it, but Eric is just so… Eric, you hardly notice him at all. He's just sort of around, like a trusty mobile phone or a watch. Mum grinned over her coffee cup. Is that a bad thing? Think of all your male friends in the last 10 years that you've dated. Can you imagine any of those jerks changing your baby's nappies or taking your child to art school? Oh God, Mum, please. Mum raised her coffee cup at me. Any chump can tear down a barn, and you need a carpenter to build it. I'd had enough and got up to leave. Mum, I've got to go. Thanks for the coffee, but I have a million things to do and I promised to meet Dad for an early dinner. Mum looked sadly into my eyes. Okay, Kelly. Tell Daddy I said hi. I nodded and kissed Mum. Mum hesitated and asked quietly, Does your dad ever ask about me? I gave a strained smile and walked out of the flat. I thought about what Mum had said on the way to Dad's house. It made me angry. I had come to Mum for comfort after catching that slut with my ex-boyfriend. Not for a lecture on the birds, the bees, and time. It was so unfair. We were told we could do anything a man could do, and when we did, we were called bitches. Now we're expected to be the CEO in the boardroom, the chef in the kitchen, and then all of a sudden, oh, by the way, you only have a window to have perfect children and a husband, or else there's a biggle for you to come in. Loser. As I stopped at the longest traffic light in the city, I casually glanced around the park. To tease me, God played out a domestic scene in which some guy was chasing 2 little boys around a tree and a woman, obviously the wife, was sitting with a large dog on a nearby bench. It looked like a Norman Rockwell-style life insurance advert. What the hell? I thought to myself. I'll ring Eric and see if we can go out this weekend. Nothing serious, just to try it out. Eric deserves a treat. Next chapter. I sat in Starbucks holding a cinnamon dolce light frappuccino coffee in one hand and my phone in the other. Hey Eric, it's Kelly, how are you? Kelly, good to hear from you. Eric seemed genuinely happy to hear from me. What's wrong? Did your car battery die again? No, no, nothing like that, Eric. I just called to say hi and see if you wanted to hang out on Friday. Huh, that sounds great, Kelly. But Gina's coming over on Friday. She'll be babysitting her 5-year-old nephew. We're going to take him to the fireworks show at Young at Art on Friday night. I cursed to myself. What a bitch that Gina is. But pulled myself together. Oh, that sounds great. I'm sure Gina needs to put the baby to bed afterwards. Do you want to go to the club after she leaves? Eric laughed. Can't. I promised the boy that after the fireworks we'd watch a SpongeBob film on my big screen TV. Me, Gina, and the boy will have a sleepover. I've got popcorn in 4 different flavors, the whole deal. And Saturday morning we'll all go to Home Depot for a kid's workshop. Lad will be building a birdhouse. Okay, Eric, sounds like fun for everyone. I prayed this guy would hit Gina over the head with a hammer. How about picking me up Saturday night? We can swing by that new place on 23rd Avenue. Can I take a rain check, Kelly? Anna and I are going to the XYZ concert on Saturday. Really? Anna bought tickets to XYZ? They've been sold out for months now. Yeah, I know, right? I've been trying to get tickets ever since I found out XYZ were playing here. They're my favorite band. Anna said she got the tickets in the company raffle. I took a sip of my coffee. I imagined what that slut Anna had done to get the tickets, but did my nicest voice. Oh, Eric, I'm so jealous. Tell you what, let's meet on Sunday for brunch and you can tell me about the concert. Maybe later, Kelly? Sunday morning, Vicky's bringing her dog over to our place. Vicky, me, Achilles, my dog and Vicky's dog are going to go to the dog park to play frisbee. You have a dog named Achilles? Eric laughed. Yes, you know him. Remember him? The Doberman with one standing ear? I've always wanted to name the dog Achilles. Then when we go for walks, I could say, Achilles heel. He laughed at his own joke. Don't you remember my other 2 pets, a mongrel and a stray cat, spoilt and rotten? It took all my self-control not to blurt out that I barely remembered him. My God, Eric, you have a pretty good social calendar. Yeah, crazy, right? He chuckled. Until last spring, the only way I could get someone of the opposite sex to talk to me was if I had a tool in my hand to fix a clogged drain or a broken widget. Must be my new aftershave. Poor ignorant fool, I thought as Eric continued. Kelly, how about... It sounded like he was turning a page. Sunday night? I can cook something on the barbecue and we can watch a classic film in 3D. I even bought glasses. Now I was furious. I wasn't going to go to a dentist appointment. Eric, I don't know. Maybe you can call me on Sunday and I'll tell you. I could almost hear Eric shrug into the phone. Okay, Kelly, but why don't you call me in case I forget? Oh, sorry, someone's on the other line. I've got to go now. I hope to see you on Sunday. Bye. I sat there looking at my phone with call forced. Written on it, my Dolce Light Frappuccino cinnamon coffee was long forgotten. What the hell? I said out loud, louder than I intended, drawing stares. Eric just hung up the phone. I stood up and threw the cup in the bin. How could Eric prefer me to these whores? I had a bigger cup size than all those bitches put together. Hell, all those trailer park whores barely had the brains to blow their nose. Next chapter. My father was quite amused by my interactions with Eric. Honey, it sounds like you're a seller in a buyer's market. We were sitting on the big veranda of my dad's house. His house was much bigger than Mom's and overlooked the lake where he kept his boat. Dad was grilling on a huge rig that would have been fit for any restaurant. He was still in good physical shape, and with his tan and hair the color of salt and pepper, he could have played the part of an extra in an advertisement for some senior housing complex. But Dad, that's just not fair. I've known Eric forever. I have a degree, a career, and, not to be vain, but I'm kicking all these passers-by's arse on looks. Dad laughed, sitting down. Don't forget about modesty. You're the one who told me to be modest but not inconspicuous. Kelly, oddly enough, I understand what Eric is going through. When I moved here, I had more, female company than I had at an Oprah convention. I was out of the dating game for a long time. I don't know if the rules are different at my age or if they even exist, but the ladies here aren't fussy or shy about what they want. He got up to turn off the grill. My point, Kelly, is that the ladies here use the famous Roman saying, seize the day, trusting little in tomorrow. I set my glass down. You know, Dad, you're right. He interrupted me. You know how much I love hearing that. I waved him off with my napkin. So are you going to call Eric? Dad asked, refilling my glass. You mean now? Use the day without believing in tomorrow, Dad repeated, with exaggerated enthusiasm. I rolled my eyes, pulled out my phone, and dialed Eric's number. I gave Dad a thumbs up when Eric picked up the phone. Hey, Eric, it's Kelly again. Yeah, I saw your name on my display. Are you okay? I've never received 2 calls from you in one day before unless something's wrong. No, everything's fine, Eric. I just wanted to let you know that we're going to the cinema on Sunday. I heard Eric chuckle. That's 3D, silly. But we're going to have to reschedule. Kim found out I had the director's cut version of the 3D film's Creature from the Black Lagoon and Godzilla vs. Bambi and begged me to watch them. Turns out Kim is a big fan of the classic 3D genre. Dad saw the look of disbelief on my face as I took the phone away from my ear. The last thing I heard was Eric's voice. I hate to cut you off, Kelly, but I need to let the killer dogs outside so they can pee. Can you call me at the end of next week and we can try to connect? It was nice chatting with you. For the second time during my conversation with Eric, call ended, popped up on the screen. I tossed the phone on the table, muttering, well, that went well. If I was expecting sympathy from Dad, it didn't come. He laughed at the top of his voice and sat up, wiping tears from his eyes. I'm glad you're so amused by it, I muttered. The only film that slut Kim likes is Monster Dance with no trousers on. Dad stood up and kissed the top of my head. I'm sorry, honey, but I don't think I've ever seen you get run over, and it doesn't look like you're used to it. Damn right. Dad moved his chair over so he could sit across from me. If I didn't know Eric better, I'd say he got a little revenge. What are you talking about? Dad leaned back in his chair. Remember, you were a senior in high school and the lead performer in the school production of West Side Story. Yeah, so? Eric was part of the film crew, and I think he invited you to the party after the play. Maybe he did, I don't remember. Well, he certainly remembered then. The poor bastard turned up at the house with a dozen roses in Dad's old car. He must have polished that car 100 times. The bloody reflection nearly blinded me. I bet those roses cost him a week's wages at his minimum wage job. Oh. Oh, right. Where were you? You left with that clown who played the lead, and Tommy, what's his name? I cringed at the memory. Tommy brought us that nasty beer. It made me so sick. Guess who at that party turned off Tommy's car so he wouldn't get behind the wheel drunk and then drove your slick arse home that night? I dropped my head in my hands. Please don't tell me it was Eric. Dad nodded his head. Actually, it wasn't my proudest moment. Mom and I decided that Eric got you drunk on beer. I kicked his arse and your mom threw his roses in the bin. Eric didn't deny anything, just stood there and took all the abuse. Dad looked at the grill. I only found out the truth after you both graduated. Eric never told anyone. I only found out by a strange coincidence. How I apologized to Eric back then. Do you know what he said when I asked him why he didn't tell me what happened? What? Eric stood there with a goofy smile on his face and said, no problem. Real men never complain. Real men never blame. I picked up my phone from the table. Might as well erase Eric's name from my contact list. If I were him, I wouldn't spit in my mouth even if my tongue was on fire. Dad shook his head. If it were anyone else, I'd agree with you, but not Eric. Think about why else he would have continued to help you all these years. I put the phone back in my purse. I don't know, but I'm not taking any more chances. Eric won't be ready for what I'm about to unleash on him. Dad raised his glass to me. Chance favors the prepared man or woman. It was another week before I got on Eric's damn calendar. It was a Friday night car show, not the event I would have chosen. Seriously, who would want to waste a summer evening wandering around a car park littered with old ruins? I was surprised when Eric showed up and walked me to his car. Eric, my goodness, is that a Lincoln? Of course, Eric replied proudly, patting the gleaming fender. Lincoln Continental Mark IV. This one was built in 1973. I shuddered. My grandfather, or Sonataire, had a car just like that. Eric smiled broadly as he opened the passenger door. What a coincidence, since it's your grandfather's car. I was stunned. He must be joking. No, really, seriously, it's my Sonataire's car. Of course, Eric replied, holding my hand as I got into the car and lowered myself into the padded front seat. Kelly, your grandfather always took impeccable care of this car. After he died, it stayed that way in the garage. Your father practically gave it to me as a gift. It took a while to replace all the dried up gaskets and stuff, but everything is original and works, even the AM/FM radio. The familiar smell of the interior filled my nostrils, and I inhaled deeply as Eric walked around the car to get behind the wheel. I don't know if I imagined it or not, but the bouquet of smells brought me back to the happiest days of my childhood. My Hair and I were walking to get ice cream, and I felt Hair's presence as surely as if he were sitting next to me. Eric settled in as the driver. He had a cat that ate the canary expression on his face. Suddenly, he reached across the driver's seat and opened the glove box. He pointed to the inside glove compartment door. There, in childish scribbles of my young hand, was written in uncertain letters, Kelly plus Sionathere forever, surrounded by a large heart. A thought flashed through my mind. Eric was the man I was going to marry, bear him children, and then grow old together. The car show was a lot of fun. Although I only recognized a few cars from my teenage years, the atmosphere was great, with a DJ playing old tunes, kids trying to use hoops, and a bunch of food carts. Eric's car, was attracting a lot of attention. Eric chatted casually with everyone, and even the kids in their imported rice rocket cars came up to him with questions. At the end of the evening at the car show, my campaign for Eric to propose to me began. It took about 9 months before he asked for my hand in marriage. It would have happened sooner, but it took over a month to cross all the other hotties off his calendar. How did I convince Eric that I was the one for him? Easy, I showed him what great partners we would be together. Our potential as parents, the common interest that brought us together, the fact that we were true soulmates, and of course, it's all a load of rubbish. I was giving Eric what every guy wants. Eric, like most single guys, was limited to 4 main food groups: microwave, cereal boxes, pizza, and Chinese takeaway. Sure, the best I could do in the kitchen was make restaurant reservations using my phone, but I could find enough ingredients to keep Eric's stomach full. Eric wasn't the worst lover I'd ever had. Eric continues the story. Wow, is all I can say. I really enjoyed being married. Kelly was wonderful, even the cat liked her. We had the usual minor disagreements, like my choice of decor as opposed to hers, but once I saw what she did to the house, I quickly sent my lonely memorabilia to the garage to make a traditional man cave. We both loved to laugh, and comedy clubs and concerts and local theaters became our date nights. As we all know, when the gods want to make us cry, they make us laugh first because everything was good until it was bad. We just walked out of the doctor's office. After a year of trying to have a baby, we decided to get a checkup. My swimmers were fine in both quantity and quality. Unfortunately, the problem was Kelly. I can't spout half the medical jargon, but basically, I had a better chance of getting pregnant than Kelly. All existing methods involving Kelly had such a low chance that the odds were non-zero, meaning above 0%, but not by much. Unless 3 wise men with gifts come from the East, we would have to go the expensive route of surrogacy or adoption. I was fine with both and was ready to take out a mortgage, sell everything I owned, or take out a loan. Kelly was stunned and said she needed time. That, I think, was the beginning of the end. Next chapter. Kelly fell into a despondency that turned into a deep depression. She even quit her job. It took the intervention of her parents and me to get her into treatment. They tried different medications, but the ones that worked made her gain weight, which made her even more withdrawn. Kelly had to make a huge effort to go anywhere. Every time she saw a child or family, she nearly burst into tears. I was at a loss as to how to help her. My attempts to guffaw, think how much money we'll save on birth control, had the opposite effect. After about 2 years of this behavior, I was ready to become depressed. And then a miracle happened. Kelly's therapist picked the right combination of medications, and in conjunction with Kelly's sessions, I gradually came out of my shell. Although I was glad to have my wife back, the old life didn't happen. Kelly refused to discuss any options for our family, and I simply dropped the subject. It seemed like we were no longer getting along, but just existing together. Even when we were physically near each other, like eating breakfast, Kelly acted as if I wasn't there, scrolling through her smartphone or going over paperwork from her new job as office manager. I felt invisible, like she was looking past me. Kelly didn't want to go to comedy clubs anymore, but when she showed interest in our local theater, I bought season tickets. We went to every new show, and some shows she went to several times, bringing her mom if I wasn't home. I felt like I was seeing a small light at the end of a long, dark tunnel. Of course, fate decided it was an oncoming train. Next chapter. Joanna appeared from behind the register at the shop as I walked up to pay for my Monday morning coffee. Eric, come with me now, Joanna said, grabbing my hand and pulling me through the back door. Stop, Joanna. I'm going to spill my coffee, exclaimed I as her iron grip pulled me outside. Joanna lowered her hand to light a cigarette and took a puff as the door closed behind us. Eric, your wife is cheating on you, Joanna spat, exhaling a trickle of smoke through her nose. I brushed the smoke off her face. You're insane, I replied, as Joanna took another puff. You must have mistaken Kelly for someone else. I mean, you see 100 people a day. Joanna put her hands on her hips. I was at your damn wedding. I know what your wife looks like, and I know damn well what a cheating bitch looks like. Doubt crept into my mind. Joanna, accusing someone is very serious. Are you 110% sure? Joanna interrupted me. I'd like to be wrong, but Kelly was here with that asshole from the theater. Tommy, what's his name? They were here together yesterday. My head was spinning. All day yesterday, I'd been at her father's flat installing an electric water heater for him. How was that possible? It can't be, Joanna. You must be mistaken. Kelly is like a lot of people. Joanna threw down her cigarette and crushed the butt with the heel of her shoe. Right, Eric? How many women like Kelly let their lovers drive their husband's classic 1973 Mark IV Lincoln Continental? What? Kelly's history. What? Mum exclaimed, setting aside her coffee cup. It's nothing, Mum. Eric doesn't know, does he? I said. Besides, if Eric recognized Tommy, he'd really like him. They look a lot alike. Mum shook her head. Do you really think Eric has less morals than the god who gave the lint for the dryer? Do they look alike? Jesus, my child, are you out of your mind? Does Eric sleep with married women too? No, Mum, but my marriage was in bad shape. Kelly, infidelity doesn't make a bad marriage better. It makes a marriage worse, much worse, just like divorce eventually does. But Mum, I'm not ending my marriage, I'm just not getting as much use out of it right now. Mum slid her coffee cup closer to her. If you're not ending your marriage, then your actions suggest that things aren't so bad. You're getting something out of this arrangement. I've been through a lot. Why am I not entitled to something? Kelly, adultery is a crappy set of decisions based on entitlement. Mum, you just don't get it. Mum stood up, walked around the table, and took me by the shoulders with both hands. Honey, yes, I do understand, she said, squeezing my shoulders. I fooled your father once. Just a stupid couple of dates with whatever. Mum sat up and wiped the tears from her eyes. You were in high school, and for some reason I figured a little affair couldn't hurt. Your father found out about it and left me. I convinced your father to stay until you were out of high school. I thought I could get him back in 2 years. You cheated on your father? I said, recoiling from her. Mum tensed up. Yes, and as soon as you left for college, your father moved out and filed for divorce. Now I tensed. That's not going to happen to me and Eric. He'll never know. And I'll never hurt him, even unintentionally, unlike what you did to Dad. Mum shook her head. Hurt him unintentionally? Cheating is as intentional as a NATO airstrike. I got up to leave. Tommy works with me. Eric never comes to work with me, so how could he know? Mentally, I cursed myself for letting Tommy talk me into taking a ride in the Lincoln yesterday. I swore that mistake wouldn't happen again. Mum continued to shake her head. Having fun with a mate at work? How corny is that? I picked up my purse. I don't know, Mum. How corny was your mate? Mum acted like I'd punched her in the face. Look, Mum, that's not what I meant. It's just a part-time job for Tommy. He's an actor. Tommy has done property adverts before, and he has a script for a play. We're both just creating memories to reminisce about in the future. That's it, nothing else. Mum circled her hand around her small condominium as I headed for the door. Look around, Kelly, because when Eric finds out sitting in a small condo with a bottle of wine is your future. Next chapter. I don't know what shocked or angered me more as I drove away from my mum's house. Shocked is putting it mildly to describe my feelings about her revelation that she had cheated on Dad. It was a betrayal, plain and simple, and it really pissed me off that she had hurt Daddy. It also pissed me off that my mum never took my side in any relationship problems. Who was she to judge? My little affair was different from the one she had with Dad. I remember reading a survey conducted by Illicit Encounters, a British extramarital dating site. They surveyed 2,000 users and found that 73% of the women who admitted to having affairs had mothers who had also had affairs. It was partly her fault, as it was my mum who was always talking about Eric and pushing me towards him. And yet there was a voice in the back of my brain that I couldn't banish and that whispered, "The apple doesn't fall far from the tree." I turned on the radio to drown out that voice and reminded myself that Eric would never find out, so it was okay. Eric's history. I was shocked by what Joanna had said and headed home, leaving all thoughts of work behind. Reaching the garage, I took a deep breath and opened the front door of the Lincoln. Poking my head inside, I immediately noticed that the driver's seat was out of place. The seat had been pushed far back, for a driver with much longer legs than me. Even without that clue, I realized that what Joanna had told me about Kelly having fun with another guy was true. The cabin smelled. Just as I was about to close the door, something caught my eye. A cheap red Bic lighter peeked out from under one of the back seat cushions. Neither Kelly nor I smoke. I pulled the lighter out from under the cushion, closed the car door, and sat on the garage floor with my back against the front fender. For the next few days, I avoided Kelly until I got myself under control. It was easy because now we just coexisted. There would be no counseling, no drawn-out drama, no cameras, no hidden dictaphones, no private investigators and the like. For me, it was like a quick and clean peel off of a Band-Aid. It was like taking out the rubbish without looking back. Joanna let me borrow her truck and trailer. On Friday, after Kelly left for work, I loaded all of her stuff into boxes and bags and sent them to the storage unit. I had already had time to cancel the bills and split the finances, so I went to her work to end the marriage. By the time I entered Kelly's reception area, it was a late afternoon. The security guards were trying to escort some guy out of the lobby. "You bitch, Talon!" shouted a man carrying a large box accompanied by two guards. "Fire me, whore!" He shook off the arm of one of the guards. "Let's go," one of the guards pleaded. "Metro police are on their way. You must leave the premises before they arrive, or you will be taken to jail." "Screw you!" shouted the man, swinging open the front door. "All you jerks are going to pay. I don't care how many lawyers you idiots have." Taking advantage of the fact that everyone was focused on the spectacle, I slipped past the receptionist's desk. I didn't feel like doing it in the lobby. Halfway down the corridor, I stopped an elderly man in caretaker's clothes who spoke in a foreign language in an aggrieved voice. "Excuse me, sir, can you tell me where Kelly's office, the office manager's office, is located?" I asked. Before he could answer, a female employee in a business suit walked past. The woman assessed my jeans and work shirt with a disdainful expression and turned to the maintenance worker. "This is America. We would appreciate it if you would speak the language or return to your country." The old man didn't miss a beat. "I speak the Apache language, and it is the native language of America. So listen, you tight-ass immigrant. Why don't you go back to your country if you can't speak the language?" Turning to me, he continued, "Kelly's office is on the first floor, right off the balcony, about the fourth door from the CEO's office." "Thank you," I said and headed up the stairs, leaving the lady standing there with her mouth open. Next chapter. The door to Kelly's office was closed, but I entered without knocking. What was she going to do, trick me? Surprise, surprise. Tommy was in the office, sitting on the inside corner of her desk, leaning forward. Kelly was sitting in her chair as close as she could get. Tommy jumped up quickly, and Kelly leaned back. "Eric," Kelly said, clearly embarrassed. "What a surprise. You remember Tommy from your high school days, don't you?" Tommy waved his hand half-heartedly. "Tommy, yes," I asked. "You were in West Side Story, right?" Tommy flashed his eyes. "You remember my performance? I was something even then." "Not really," I shrugged. "I just remember you couldn't hold your beer." A shocked expression appeared on Tommy's face. Kelly jumped up. "Tommy works here in the mailroom." Tommy waved his hand. "It's temporary. I've been here for a couple of months. I'm actually an actor, just waiting for feedback on a play I wrote. I'm also doing some TV work. You've probably seen me in the red real estate adverts. No, not really, I replied. Oh, Tommy was shocked. Kelly said you guys have season tickets to the theater where I perform. You must really like my work. I nodded in Kelly's direction. Well, Kelly is a big fan of grown men putting on makeup and acting in plays. Me, not so much. Tommy and Kelly exchanged glances before he spoke. Thank you for supporting the arts. If you need anything, just ask. Really, Tommy, I said. I'd ask you not to entertain my wife, Kelly, but it's too late for that. Eric, Kelly hissed, jumping up from her chair. I ignored her. Do you have a cigarette, Tommy? I pointed to his nicotine-stained thumb and forefinger. What? Tommy was confused. Yeah, sure, he stammered, digging in his front pocket looking for a crumpled packet of cigarettes. I tossed his cheap red lighter onto Kelly's desk. Here's one of your lighters. Must have fallen out when you entertained Kelly in her grandfather's car on Sunday. Eric, Kelly shouted, stop this right now. Tommy's just a friend. I pulled out my smartphone. Give me a break, Kelly. I've got the security footage from the surveillance camera installed in the garage of the two of you having fun in Shaunater's car. I'm sure he'd be proud that his favorite car is being used by his granddaughter as a bed to ruin her marriage. Good thing I taped up the upholstery. Actually, the security cameras were still in the box on my bench. I was too lazy to install them. But I was willing to bet Kelly didn't know about it. Tommy and Kelly exchanged glances again. Kelly walked around the table and headed towards me, but I held out my hand to stop her. Eric, you have to believe that I never meant to hurt you. I interrupted her. Your intentions don't matter. You knew full well that cheating would hurt me. That's why you kept it a secret. You didn't want to hurt me? Well then, you weren't trying to keep me out of trouble either. Tommy looked uncomfortable. I'd better go. I turned to him. You don't have to go, boy who believes. I pulled an envelope out of my bag and tossed it on the table. Kelly's going to need a place to sleep. Here's the key to the storage unit where all her shit is kept and 6 months' rent papers. Tommy shook his head. No way, dude. I already live in my mom's basement, so... Kelly looked stunned. A storage unit, what? Wait, no, Eric, wait, listen. Mistakes were made. Not by me, Kelly. All mistakes are being corrected on my part right now. You have credit cards and money. If you don't want to sleep with Tommy Boy in Mom's laundry room, just find a place to live. I could see Kelly was still in shock. Eric, this isn't a deal breaker until you know there's no problem. Are you out of your mind, Kelly? You didn't think about my welfare. You were staggeringly selfish. You risked my health. All because you wanted a bit of weirdness. You didn't think I'd find out, and you thought it was a good compromise from the start. I made one last attempt. It's a good thing you don't have kids, Kelly. That way you can't ruin their home life. Kelly hissed. You bastard. You had to be having fun with someone else for you to have a disease. I shook my head. Are you that stupid, Kelly? Tommy puffed up his chest and pointed at me. I'm not someone who can't satisfy his wife. He looked at Kelly. What? I never said we had an exclusive relationship. Come on, Kelly. You've seen what the ladies are like backstage. Ladies? Kelly raged. A bunch of fat housewives and ancient first wives. She threw a cheap lighter at Tommy. I turned to leave. Welcome to the First Wives Club, Kelly. You and Basement Boy deserve each other. Since you work at a law firm, you can file divorce papers. Kelly's face was almost beetroot red. You guys are both arseholes. I wagged my finger at her and headed out the door. Next chapter. I was standing at the stairs to the first-floor balcony, trying to calm myself down when I heard gunshots. Leaning over the railing, I saw a guy with a pump-action shotgun firing at the ceiling. There were 2 guards lying on the floor next to him. In the midst of the screaming, I heard him yell, "Here I am, bitch Talon. I want to discuss your deal right now." Heads peeked out of the office. The old caretaker I was talking to was pushing his cart towards the stairs at breakneck speed, shouting, "Active shooter." Active shooter. Run to safety. Go immediately to the safe room on the 5th floor. The old caretaker reached the top of the stairs just as the gunman began to climb them. The old man pushed the entire cleaning cart down the stairs. The mass of mops, buckets, and bottles of cleaning supplies hit the gunman right in the chest as he somersaulted down the stairs, knocking him to the floor. The caretaker looked at me and pointed to a large copy machine. "Move that thing over to the stairs. We have to block it." I froze in place and couldn't move as the caretaker ran to the lift and inserted the key into the slot of the binder on my belt. He rushed past me. "Come on, lad, let's go. That'll disable the lift, but we'll still have to block the stairs." My body simply refused to react, and the old man ignored me, unhooking the massive copier and pushing it towards the stairs, ignoring the gunshots. I was now joined by Kelly, Tommy, and about 6 other women, including the one who told off the cleaning lady for talking to Apache. We stood wide-eyed and watched what was happening as if it were a reality show. When shots rang out in the copy machine, the cleaning lady mockingly asked the shooters, "Hey, are you shooting blanks? Looks like you need a bigger gun." The crazy bastard then started throwing potted plants in the direction of the shooters. The old man looked at me and hissed, "I can't hold him back much longer. Move your arse and lead these men to the women's hut around the corner." I was still in a trance until Kelly tugged on my arm. "Let's go, Eric." Next chapter. We were cowering in the women's bathroom like a flock of sheep when the caretaker came in. He switched off the lights, and it took a minute for my eyes to adjust to the darkness. The man pointed to half a dozen women. "Stand in the last stall, farthest from the door. Stand behind the china as far back as you can." He turned to Tommy and me. "Move the couch in front of the stall wall. That will help block any pellets that get in. Hopefully, we'll be able to sit this out until the cavalry arrives. We have to keep quiet and hope he doesn't find us." He locked the door. "Anyone keeping an eye out for that arsehole shooter?" I raised my hand like I was in 3rd grade. "He was wearing something that looked like a black life jacket," I said. The old man nodded. "An armored waistcoat." He turned to the group of women huddled in the last stall. "You," he pointed to Kelly. "Give me your bra. Now." Tommy was still looking around in panic. "You're going to listen to that old pervert." "Shut up, Tommy," I said, pointing to a tattoo on the inside of the old man's forearm that resembled the Budweiser Eagle and A beer logo. Only his tattoo had an eagle and a trident with an anchor. "This guy knows his business," the man said, ripping the cups apart, then clenched one cup in his fist and slapped it on the mirror above the sink. He picked out a long, jagged piece, wrapped the end of it in one of Kelly's bra cups, and held it out to me. Surely our shooter has a less expensive ballistic waistcoat. Ballistic armor dissipates the kinetic energy of a projectile, such as a bullet, through a network of Kevlar-like fibers, like a football hitting a goal net at speed. It won't stop a knife or a punch. "What if he doesn't have cheap body armor?" shouted Tommy, almost in a panic. "Calm down," said the man, trying to hold out a bra-wrapped spike to Tommy. "Then we'll go for the face. There's enough of us here, and if we pile on all at once, we'll have a chance." "To hell with this," Tommy said, dodging a jagged piece of glass held out in front of him. "I'm not going to sacrifice myself for a bunch of selfish weaklings. Those bitches wanted equal rights. Let them fight it out." He began to squeeze through the small crowd crammed into the last stall. The old man grabbed Tommy by the hair on the back of his neck and pulled him backwards. Tommy spun in place. The old man kicked him under his kneecap, and Tommy fell to the ground. "You want to die on your knees instead of fighting on your feet like a man? That's your choice, but you're not going to hide behind a bunch of skirts to save your hide." Tommy scurried off to the far corner as the boy let go of his hair. The man turned to me. "What about you? Fight or flight?" I was so scared my teeth were chattering. "I think I'll wet myself, but I'll stay on my feet." "Look, that door won't hold a damn thing. The shooter's got a pump-action shotgun, looks like a 12-gauge, which would easily put a hole in the door, but the tiles on either side of the door should protect us from the buckshot." He walked over to the wall next to the door. "The door opens outward, so even this cheap door will be hard to kick in. I bet he'll shoot the lock off and then pull the door on himself. Like most guys, he'll open the door with his dominant hand, which is also his gun hand." He pantomimed the action. "For a moment, the shotgun will be in his other hand. That means his hand will be holding the door, not the trigger. With the lights off, he'll be staring into the darkness and won't be able to see. That's when we'll strike." He turned to me. "You'll be upstairs and I'll be downstairs." He pointed at the woman. "You'll pile on. Don't stop for any reason. The adrenaline will dull any pain. Don't be afraid to hit me, because stitches are better than a coffin." At that moment, we heard another shotgun blast. "Come on out, bitch Talon. Bring your goddamn law textbook and your Ivy League diploma." The old man pushed my back against the wall next to the door. He crouched with the lady behind him on the other side of the door, below tile level. I mimicked his pose. My bladder was ready to burst. The only light in the room was falling from under the door, 2 feet obscured the light, and then there was the clatter of the doorknob. "You in there, Talon bitch! Come out before I blow up your house!" The distinctive sound of a pump-action shotgun blast was followed by a loud explosion as the doorknob simply disappeared. Shrapnel hit the old man in the leg, and he was thrown backwards towards the lady. The door swung open abruptly. Just as the old man had predicted, the shotgun lay in the gunman's left hand, and his right hand rested on the edge of the door. Our eyes met, and I froze like a deer caught in the light of car headlights. The shooter's right hand moved to the trigger of the shotgun. Although my brain was at a complete standstill, some instinct drove my body to act on its own. An inner need for survival drove me forward, toward the attack. Kelly's story. As the rifle shot pierced the door, the woman behind me screamed and the baby began to cry. The old man who had taken the bra from me fell over as if he had been hit with a baseball bat and collapsed onto the large woman behind him. The door swung open, revealing the silhouette of a man in a large black waistcoat with a gun in his hands. I knew I was going to die, so I made the long-forgotten sign of the cross that I had been taught in my youth. Suddenly, out of nowhere, out of the darkness, Eric pounced on the gunman. He clawed at him, and they both collapsed to the floor. "Police, stop! Drop your weapons, now!" a voice shouted. Eric didn't even slow his frantic kick at the recumbent figure. 2 shots rang out. Eric was thrown off the body of the gunman, but he crawled backwards like a zombie and began hammering the body with his fists. "Stop! Hands up!" shouted one of the officers, stepping around Eric with pistols at the ready. A large woman leaned out of the door and covered Eric with her body. "Don't shoot! It's not him! He's not the shooter!" About 1 million men in police uniforms and with all sorts of weapons scattered. 3 days later. "No, Kelly," Joanna said. "I was in the shop where Eric bought his terrible coffee every morning." I was standing over Joanna, who, kneeling, was arranging packages of donuts in the display case. "God damn it, you lesbian!" I shouted at her. "You can't just break into my house and steal my animals. That's all I have from Eric." Joanna stood up and brought her face close to mine. I almost choked on her cigarette breath. "Listen, you cheating scumbag," Joanna began. "Firstly, I didn't break down the door. Eric gave me the key. Secondly, this isn't your house, it's Eric's house. And thirdly, the fact that you left Eric's pets without food or water for 2 days shows that you can't be trusted to take care of anyone or anything Eric cares about." She waved her finger in front of my face. "We all know what happens when someone trusts you with something important like marriage vows." I took a step back. It's not my fault. You know how crazy the last few days have been. Do you know how awkward it is to barge into your own house because your husband changed the locks? Joanna took a step toward me. "Is it really as bad as what Eric experienced when I told him his wife was a cheap whore?" I took another step back. This is between me and Eric. You have no right to pry into our marital affairs." Joanna laughed. "Okay, affairs is a word that suits you. I think your marriage stopped being between you and Eric when you started having fun with other men." I strained my back. It was just one guy, and I was in a bad position at the time. "In a bad position, Kelly." I clenched my fists. "Damn it, Joanna, you don't know shit." I felt my blood pressure rising. "Do you have any idea how hard this is for me?" Joanna grinned. To quote actor John Wayne, "Life is hard, but it's even harder when you're stupid." At that moment, the chimes over the door of the shop rang out and 2 policemen entered. "Hey, Joanna, do you have any dark roast?" Joanna waved her hand towards a pile of coffee cans. "Sure, Derek, the last can of coffee is fresh and just the way you like it." I lowered my voice. "Give me my animals back, or I swear to God the cops will haul your arse off to jail." Joanna smiled widely. "Really? You want the cops?" She waved her hand at the 2 cops filling coffee mugs and said loudly, "Derek, Pitt, would you come over here and kick this whore out of my shop?" A larger officer approached. "What's the problem, Joanna?" Joanna pointed at me. "That whore wants to show tricks in front of my shop. You can get rid of her and make sure she stays away. I don't want her pestering my customers with questions." The officer put his hand on the handcuffs. "I need you to leave immediately and don't come back. Do you understand?" I was about to protest, but I saw the look on his face. Turning around, I saw that damned bullheaded Joanna. "This isn't over," I hissed. Joanna waved me away with a wave of her hand. "Yes, it's over, bitch. Just like your marriage is over." Eric. Eric, you're going to have to let her come in to see us in a little while, the nurse told me as she changed the IV bag. It had been a week since I'd had my trachea and urinal removed, so at least I could eat what was considered food in the hospital. I didn't really like sitting in the chair, but the maze of tubes around and inside me ruled out going to the can. Thank you, Florence Nightingale, but I prefer not to be reminded what an arse I was and why I am in your tender care. My nurse shook her head. It's a shame that the first thing you asked for after the operation was to ban your wife from the ward. She sits in the waiting room every day. I know she's hoping you'll call and let her come in. I tried to get comfortable, which proved to be no easy task. Yeah? Well, I lie on that damn bed every day, too. At least she can get up and pee in the toilet or see her boyfriend, or have her boyfriend pee on her. Either way, keep her away from me. The nurse checked the other IV. It's just the drugs talking. I know what a nice guy you are. Let me give you a hypothetical situation where you talk to her for just a second. How about this? What if there were no hypothetical questions? At that moment, there was a knock on the door, and a caretaker from the film set entered. He was assisted by a young, slim woman of about 25 with long, straight black hair. High cheekbones and other common facial features made them look alike. The girl helped him into a chair as the nurse left. He had a brace on one leg and a bandage with many bandages over one eye. How are you feeling, Eric? I raised my hand with a web of tubes. Like Spider-Man without superpowers. He grinned. I spent 2 business trips running around the jungle with Greenface and didn't get a scratch. And now, in my golden years, a door is kicking my arse. The man turned to the girl. Eric, this is my granddaughter, Starlight. I won't be allowed to drive in this condition, so she'll be my chauffeur for now. I waved my hand at the attractive girl and turned to the older guy in the chair. I'm embarrassed, but I don't even know your name. Tonto, he said. Really? Like Tonto from Kimasabi's The Lone Ranger? I asked. Yeah, Tonto, he laughed. Starlight rubbed him on the shoulder. That's not a real name. Tonto smirked. Okay, but I got the name as Tam, and it stuck. No one ever forgets it. He turned to his granddaughter. Starlight, dear, please go to the machine downstairs and get your old grandfather a big cup of coffee. And plenty of sugar. Starlight kissed Tonto. Sure, Grandpa, but you're not old. You'll live forever. I watched her slender figure walk out the door. Tonto caught my gaze. I'm sorry, I said, embarrassed. Tonto waved his hand. Well, at least I know you're not gay. Now, Eric, between us men, what's your 5-year plan? 5 years? I don't even know what's going to happen in 5 hours. My life right now feels like a test I didn't prepare for. How big a family do you want? Tonto, are you asking for a date? The old man laughed. No, but hopefully she will be. He pointed to the door Starlight had just come out of. She just got out of a failed relationship. Olie Didi had to remind her boyfriend that I've killed people I didn't even know, and I'm not going to lose sleep adding that to my score. I advised him to leave that part of the country and never come back, because I have 25 acres of land with an excavator and nobody will ever find his body. Tonto, remind him not to date your granddaughter. He clapped himself on the leg. Just the opposite, Eric, my boy. I want Starlight to be with a real man. A guy who will support his woman and let her support him. I see such a man in you. I shook my head. Tonto, I wet my trousers when that guy with the gun opened the door. Tonto shrugged. All battles are fought by scared people who would rather be somewhere else. On my first assignment, I would have had to change my underwear twice if I had it on. He pointed at me. When it was time to step up, you did. That's all that matters, and it means a lot. Courage is when you're scared to death, but you get in the saddle anyway. I tried to find a graceful way out of the situation. Your granddaughter is unlikely to know of my existence. Tonto tapped his finger on his head. Leave it to me. Kelly's history. Tommy, stop calling me. I was almost shouting into the phone. The people in the hospital waiting room were staring at me, so I got up and walked out into the car park. Sure, Kelly, but have you thought about what I said? Tommy, the only time I think about you is how I wish we had never contacted each other, and how I wish you were dead. Whatever, Kelly. It's a big opportunity. A film about what happened to us could be my big break, but we have to strike now while it's hot. Tommy, I'm hanging up. Don't call this number again or I'll stab you myself. I need to keep this line free in case Eric calls. I didn't hear a single no in that sentence, Kelly. No, 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 no. Is that clear enough? Wait. The producers have several storylines we can go down. For example, if Eric realizes how strong our bond with each other is and gives us his blessing in the hospital before he dies. Eric, don't die, I shouted into the phone. Won't die. Shit, okay. Then we have another storyline where I go to therapy with you guys and help heal the pain. You guys are so grateful you named your first child after me. It's just girl bait. You're a jerk. You know I can't have kids. Kelly, it's a film. You can have an elf if you want. Otherwise, we'll have you adopt some foreign kid from a third world country where all the Hollywood public takes jobs for foreigners from. As a dramatization of this story, you can adopt a puppy or a pony and name it after me. Later, the pony will grow up and win the Kentucky Derby. You jackass, ponies don't grow into horses. Really, Kelly? Okay, we'll fix that in the script. I put my hand on my forehead, feeling my head start to hurt. For the millionth time, I cursed myself for even talking to this man, let alone having fun with him. Tommy wasn't worthy of wearing Eric's socks. Tommy, please, just go away. Kelly, we have plenty of other story ideas in any genre, but they really need you to sign on to get some traction. How about it turns out that Eric is actually a robot from the future, coming to the present to save you and me? I pressed the end call button and put the phone back in my purse. Eric's story. Tonto and Starlight had become daily residents of my hospital room. Tonto made no secret of his desires, and after a while, both Starlight and I became increasingly amused by his attempts. Finally, Starlight stood up. Eric, my grandfather will never let up, so we can set a date to go out at least once. Okay, Starlight, I said, but you'll have to drive on the first date. Tonto leaned back in his chair with a smile on his face. My work here is done. As he got up to leave, there was another knock on the door and the middle-aged lady who had been with us on the shoot walked in. Tonto, Starlight, and the lady greeted each other warmly. I felt like a stranger in my own room. Tonto began the introductions. Eric, this is Allie. She is the CEO of Talon and granddaughter of the founder. He rubbed her shoulder. A woman with brass balls as well as brains. Remembering her sitting against the wall with a shard of glass clutched in her hand, I had no doubt Tonto's description was accurate. Allie squeezed my finger warmly. I and everyone at the firm owe you a debt we can never repay. I hope you will accept compensation from both us and the city, but I will not insult your sacrifice by offering only money for what you have done and endured. Tonto interrupted. You can insult my sacrifice by offering me only money. Allie waved her hand at him. Hush, Tonto. Everyone knows you have more money than King Midas. Starlight added, You're only working because Grandma was going to poison your coffee if you didn't go away and stop bothering her. Damn women, Tonto grumbled. A man has to have a purpose to get up in the morning. Starlight rolled her eyes. You get up at 4 in the morning every damn day. Old habits die hard, Tonto hummed. Allie shook her head. Eric, I know the circumstances under which you came to our office, and I'm sorry that there has been so much grief and suffering in your married life. However, I cannot express how glad I am to have you here, whatever the reason. She pointed at Tonto. We both owe you our lives, as well as my granddaughter. I felt myself blush. As far as I'm concerned, Allie, I owe my life to you, so let's consider us even. Allie shook her head again. That's hardly a fair exchange, Eric. The firm would do anything to make you whole. I wondered for a moment. Does your firm have a family law department that can handle divorces? Kelly's history. It had been 8 months since the divorce had been finalized. I had fallen back into a deep depression, and it was only in the last 3 months that I realized my act and its consequences. Today, I stood at a crossroads, but it was something I had to do, for I had learnt that tomorrow hopes we learnt something from yesterday, so I had to talk to Eric. I knew where to find him, which is why I found myself at Friday's car show, standing a few seats away from him and my Shawnathare car. Taking a deep breath, I walked over and tapped Eric on the shoulder. Eric turned around and our eyes met. I was ready for hate, disgust, indifference, but I should have known Eric was too nice a guy. Hey, Kelly, Eric said with a wide smile. How's it going? I didn't detect any sarcasm or indifference. Eric was almost happy to see me. Dare I hope so? I knew what I should do, but procrastinated, saying instead. Eric, I'm doing well. I see your film is already on Netflix. Eric laughed. How I missed that sound. I heard about that, Kelly. It was just a small indie production, but I had a lot of fun filming it. The lead singer was really cool. I nodded. He captured your mannerisms perfectly. Eric laughed again. Of course, aside from the fact that he was a foot taller, had better hair and a build like a Greek god, we could almost be twins. He struck a pose. Have you seen me show up sometimes? I was an Uber driver. I even had a phrase. Have a good day, sir, was my primary speech. I felt better just being in Eric's company. Oh, it wasn't that bad. Eric smiled his goofy smile. What did you like best? When my character made a powder bomb out of charcoal cigarette filters and dried poo to blow a hole in the wall so everyone could escape? Or when I used the ninja skills my grandfather taught me to scale a wall, disarm a gang of terrorists while holding a puppy, and then bring an orphan boy back from the dead with a heart massage using car keys? Eric's humor was infectious, and I laughed along with him. Well, at least you have a girlfriend. Girls, Eric corrected me. He got a little more serious. I'm sorry you were so harsh. I felt better than I had in a long time and joined in the self-harm. Harsh, Eric? They just made me mean. All the actress who played me was missing was horns, a tail, and a pitchfork. Eric shook his head. The entertainment department of the law firm that handled the contract told me the film was a hit in Asia. In China, it ranks as the 19th most illegally downloaded film. Well, that's something, I said, laughing. There was a pause while I took a deep breath. Eric, I need to ask you something. Shoot, Kelly, Eric said, then wrinkled his nose. Sorry, bad choice of words. I managed a weak smile. Eric, ever since I was shot, I've been living on disability and the money from our divorce. I can't go back to work at the law firm. Everyone acts like I'm some cartoon villain who betrayed Batman. I hate what happened between us. I don't know what kind of person it was. I took another deep breath. But through therapy, I've realized that I need to forgive myself. I need you to see me for who I really am. At that moment, a slender, dark-haired woman with obvious signs of pregnancy walked over to us and hugged Eric. Eric pointed at me. Oh, Kelly, I'm sorry, this is my wife, Starlight. Our gazes met and a challenge was read in both eyes. Starlight's eyes narrowed. I heard what you said. She squeezed Eric tighter. It's all rubbish. It's not so much the affair you hate as the aftermath. And telling the world you've forgiven yourself is grotesque narcissism that has nothing to do with the people you hurt, like Eric. Perhaps it makes God sharpen his lightning bolts on your arrogance. Starlight's voice lowered to a baritone. Hey, you oaf! I believe it is I, the Almighty, who is handing out forgiveness here. Who made you God? Starlight turned to Eric. I can't believe you and my grandfather almost died trying to defend that smug, delusional excuse of a human being. You should have used her as a human shield. I was stunned into silence. Nothing could have prepared me for the words of this little firebrand. It wasn't like this when we were in therapy. Eric broke the tension. Put away the mama bear claws, Starlight. I'm sure Kelly meant no harm. I forced myself to smile. Ah, okay. Well, I should get going. Thanks for talking to me, Eric. Good luck to you both with the baby. As I walked away, I knew Eric had found the woman who should have been standing shoulder to shoulder with him the day the gunman opened that door. Next chapter. I tossed my car keys into the bowl as I walked through the door. Kelly, how'd it go? Did you talk to Eric? Mum called out from the kitchen. I sat down at the table. Yeah, I talked to Eric and his wife. Eric is married, Mum asked. Yes, and they're having a baby. Oh, I'm so sorry, Kelly, Mum replied as she came out of the kitchen with a bottle of wine. Mum placed 2 glasses on the table. Have you talked to Dad about moving out? I'd lived with Mum since the divorce, but her flat was small for 2 people. Dad took what I did to Eric and the divorce very hard. Eric was like the son he always wanted for him. Yeah, I talked to Dad, I said, pouring a glass. Dad said the same thing. He loves me and will pay the first 3 months' rent plus the security deposit. I took a deep sip. But Dad feels uncomfortable having someone who cheated on him living in his flat. Mum poured herself a glass. Well, that's okay. We'll live alone for now. No one knows what the future holds for us. As I held the wine glass in my hand and looked around the small flat, my face reflected in the wine bottle, and I realized that I had messed up my future big time. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy it. So subscribe to my channel and watch the next video.